I'm 46 years old, and this is the first time I've admitted this without turning it into a joke. I live in the United States. I look fine. That's the word people use. Fine. From the outside, nothing about my life seems alarming. I still have a roof over my head. I still pay my bills, most of them at least. I still show up to family gatherings with clean clothes and polite smiles. But inside, there's a constant tension I carry everywhere, like I'm bracing for something that already happened. For a long time, I thought financial struggle was loud, obvious, something you could point to. I didn't realize how quiet it could be. I didn't lose my job suddenly. I didn't go bankrupt overnight. What happened to me was slower, almost invisible. Opportunities passed. Raises stopped coming. Expenses grew while my income stayed still. And slowly, the math stopped working. At first, it was small adjustments, cutting back on things no one would notice, saying no in ways that sounded casual. I'm just trying to be more responsible. I don't really need that. I convinced myself it was temporary. But years passed, and the gap between where I was and where people assumed I was kept growing. There's a specific kind of shame that comes with financial decline, especially when you're old enough that you're supposed to have figured it out by now. No one prepares you for how often money comes up in everyday conversation. Vacations, renovations, college plans, investments. I learned how to nod without contributing, how to redirect conversations, how to laugh at jokes about being broke while silently calculating whether I could afford groceries that week. The hardest part wasn't the lack of money, it was the loss of voice. I stopped offering opinions, stopped making suggestions, stopped dreaming out loud. Because dreaming felt irresponsible when survival was taking all my energy. There was a moment, simple, almost embarrassing, that made everything feel real. A group of friends was planning a weekend trip, nothing extravagant, just a few nights away. Someone turned to me and said, "You're in, right?" I hesitated for half a second too long. That was all it took. I made an excuse. Something vague about work. Everyone nodded and moved on. But I sat there, feeling smaller than I had in years. Not because I couldn't go, but because I couldn't admit why. Financial shame isolates you quietly. You don't ask for help because you don't want pity. You don't speak up because you don't want judgment. And you don't complain because you feel like you did this to yourself. I started measuring my worth in comparisons. Who moved ahead? Who upgraded? Who stayed behind? And without meaning to, I placed myself in a category I didn't know how to escape. The worst part? People still thought I was doing well. Compliments became painful. "You're so put together. You've always been so stable." I smiled every time. Inside, I felt like a fraud. There's a loneliness that comes from pretending you're okay when you're constantly worried about numbers. Not abstract ones, but exact ones. Rent, utilities, insurance, emergencies you pray never happen. I didn't feel lazy. I felt tired. Tired of budgeting my existence. Tired of carrying the fear alone. What finally pushed me to speak wasn't a crisis. It was a conversation with someone younger than me. They were talking about the future, confidently, casually, and I realized how much fear had replaced hope in my own thinking. I wasn't imagining possibilities anymore. I was calculating damage. That scared me. So here I am. Not because I've fixed anything. Not because I have a plan that guarantees safety, but because I don't want shame to be the loudest voice in my life anymore. I'm learning that falling behind doesn't mean you're broken. That money struggles aren't moral failures. That silence only makes the weight heavier. If you're listening to this and carrying the same quiet pressure, the kind no one sees, I want you to know. You're not irresponsible for struggling. You're not weak for being afraid. And you're not alone in this, even if it feels that way most days. Sharing this doesn't solve my problems, but it gives them air. And sometimes that's the first thing you need in order to breathe again.